Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon.
It's going to take me a while for it just to stop there.
Can we give him a byline?
A suffix. That's
Okay.
what that's called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pick up the... I don't know, man.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
He's a pickup artist.
We need
Wait,
some...
I got it.
Okay.
Jared Brandon.
Well, you're not on a game show. But anyways, hey, everybody. This is Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We're so happy. We are thrilled to death that you are with us on our show tonight for a very good reason, because you are going to join us in our ears, in your ears, listening to a very, very important guest. Important guest, who are you?
Dave Hunter.
Dave Hunter. Now, Dave Hunter, what are you famous for?
How can I even answer that question? That's really putting me up there. But I wouldn't say I'm famous for anything. But some people have some of the books that I've written, and some people have read some of the magazines that I've also written.
All right. So he's a writer man. He writes the words that get our fires all stoked up on guitar stuff. He's written several books, and tonight we have him on because he has a brand new book out, and we're going to get all up in that. It is really cool. Mm-hmm. So he knows a thing or two about guitars, and we're going to get into his history and why he knows a few things about guitars, etc., etc. Jared, why would people want to listen to this show?
Oh, why would people want to listen? They want to hear about gear and pedals and Jared and a little bit of Tony and I guess a lot of Todd, because you talk all the time. And of course, my favorite would be the 101s.
Yeah. We just did one, which is Yeah, that was super
and
duper
we talk
fun.
a lot about guitars.
Well, that is the main focus. That
is correct.
We feature predominantly the boutique builders of the world and major contributors to the guitar universe, like Dave, who is on our show tonight. So we're really excited. We hope that you, if you're listening for the first time, I think you're really going to like it. I can vouch for that. There's no guarantee, but I can vouch for it. So anyways, we're going to move on. We've got a couple of quick announcements, and then we're going to find out what's going on in our music world this week. But first, I wanted to share a little note that I got on Instagram. This is from so he's got a clever name. His username is Distortion, but it's spelled out Distor_Sean. Clever lad.
Yes.
So
he should be in the writing game.
Yeah, right. He does a little bit of stuff out there, so you guys should check him out on Instagram. So he says, we were going back and forth, and I said, hey, why don't you give us your 4 on the floor? He says, oh man, what an honor. I was honestly thinking about this all day at work, so much harder than I initially thought, and would probably change every time asked. But I'm just going to pretend I'm on the pod, so here we go. Number 1, the Maris Enzo. That is a luscious pedal. I make a lot of weird, crazy ambient soundscape stuff, so this is perfect for so many sounds. Also a great pitch shifter or filter/wah. Started off weird. Number 2, Old Blood Noise Endeavor's Dark Star. That's a great pedal. We've actually featured that on here.
Yeah, we have.
My go-to reverb. Use it mostly wet to make the attack off my guitar and make swells or drones. Can also sneak some modulation out of it with slightly offset pitches. Very cool.
Nice.
Number 3, Earthquaker Cloven Hoof. Love the versatility here, subtle or brutal. Also loved low gain after the reverb for shoegazy stuffs. Number 4, the Chase Bliss Blooper. I'll always have a looper in my lineup, usually 2 or 3, and this one's crazy, so I'm all about it. Mangled mini loops for the win. Can also get a great delay out of it. Dang, thanks for this. How fun. Metal horn emoji, smiley face emoji.
Nice.
So, Yeah, so thanks a lot, Distortion, for sending that over. And if you want to see what he's doing on Instagram, go check him out. Distor_Sean. So, any further announcements? 1, 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cody Lane is coming to Nashville. and
Science of Sound.
Yes, and we are going to hang out.
Nice. Is his band coming, or is it what is the
think
reason
he's
for
coming.
the trip?
I believe it's for work.
Ah,
Yeah, very cool.
So he's like, hey, I'm available this day and this day. So
nice.
Huge supporter of the show.
You gonna take him to the garage?
yeah, I think we'll probably meet in the garage and then go downtown and do Nashville, get some barbecue and then drink some beer and watch some live music and honky tonks and all that kind of thing. So
Sounds fun, man. Sounds fun. Well,
that's-
please say hello to him for us.
sure, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, right about now is we are going to hit the button on what is going on in our music worlds this week. We're going to start off with Tony, a.k.a. Tanya Bolonsky, and I will start introducing some of the other names that people have come up with for you that I posted on Instagram. And if you'd like to add yours, just find it in our feed, and you can add a few more aliases.
That's right.
And then right after that, we're going to hear from our friend David.
Okay, so you want to start with me?
As usual.
As
you
usual.
set the tone.
I do set the tone.
Tony.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
So this week I finally started reassembling a project that I've kind of had in progress for a couple of years, and I got frustrated with the neck at one point. So this is a reverse body Jaguar, and I enjoyed the Squire's take initially in their Vista series. They did the Supersonic, which was essentially an upside down Jaguar or Jazzmaster, and they said the inspiration for that was loosely based on a photo of Jimi Hendrix playing a Jazzmaster upside down. So I had a body cut and realized that it's not going to be for a lot of people because that on the Supersonic they actually shortened what was the upper horn now is the lower horn, but I wanted to be totally different. And since I try not to venture much beyond 7 or 8 frets, it works out okay for me. So this one has it's like I said, it's a reverse body. It's got body contouring where it shouldn't be, and
Don't we all?
Yes, and 3 slanted Jaguar pickups, and the electronics are 3 Mustang switches. So
Hey, speaking of the Jaguar pickups real quick.
yeah.
Jared, pickup guy, what is the purpose of the little metal teeth
I can answer
that are around that? I know, but he's the pickup guy.
Yeah, but sometimes I like to hear Tony's explanation because
Okay,
he's a
Tony, you
better
can go ahead.
speaker than me. But it has something to do with the overall frequency response. But let's hear what Tony says.
The claw, as it's known on Jaguar pickups,
The craw.
was designed to raise the magnetic field on the pickup. Mm-hmm. So it basically is connected to the pickup, grounded, and it because of the how they positioned and the claw lengths underneath the treble strings are shorter than the ones under the, or that might be backwards. I can't remember. Dave?
I can't remember either. I'd have to look at one. Yeah.
But it's designed, it was, it's essentially a Strat pickup, except, with the magnetic field raising, it does things a little bit different. It was designed to be a very bright pickup, which was...
So it makes it brighter?
It definitely makes them brighter.
Yeah. Does it reinforce the magneticbloom.com?
Yes. And,
Yeah.
and with the flux capacitor, it does wonderful things.
Okay. Interesting. Now, while we're on this subject real quick, why... I've never seen, maybe there's a couple boutique builders that have used them. I think maybe I've seen it on like one or two of the Walsh guitars, maybe, but don't really see them out in the wild much, except for on a Jaguar. What's up with that?
They didn't work very well, probably.
That's what's up with that.
It wasn't a hugely successful design. Some people make good replacements, right? Like
Curtis Novak.
Curtis Novak, and I think is it Mojo Pickups or Cream Tone or somebody in the UK makes some pretty well respected ones. I forget which of those it is, but the same ones that make a lot of good jazz.
Oh yeah, were those the ones on the Johnny Marr?
I think they might have been.
It might be Creamery.
Creamery, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
So Brandon,
I think they weren't that hugely successful, though, were they? Or they would have started putting them on everything. I think it was just a notion that they thought this might do that, but it seemed like it was probably a lot of guesswork. Like if we stick this on here, that'll do something.
Yeah, it should
to some extent.
If nothing else, it makes them shinier.
Yeah, well, and Jared would know this, but also it probably increases the Henry somewhat, because it's going to change the metal, the content.
Because the magnetic bloom is actually traveling through that metal, and it disrupts it. Yeah, .com, whatever. But Brandon Wound has, before I left there, we had a bunch of claws cut out of aluminum. And so we don't do the whole U-shaped claw. If you totally disassemble it from the pickup, it's just a U-shaped claw. We just do the two sides, and we actually glue them to the sides of the pickup cover. And what that does is since aluminum is non-ferrous, you get more of a useful Strat sound. So you could, beef up the pickup and make it a little more mid-strong and have a more useful pickup set in a Jaguar and still have that look of the metal claw.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like you say, I mean, they're pretty cool pickups and they could sound great under the certain circumstances, but I think most people did find they were a little too bright and thin overall anyway,
Interesting. Well, all right. I got a whole bunch of answers there. I love it.
What else you want to know?
Nothing.
The only other thing that I was saying, I put 3 Mustang switches. So in the middle position, the pickups are off. And then in the down position, they're in phase. So I can have any combination of in and out of phase of those particular pickups.
Very cool.
So, just something, in my spare time. Something.
David, what's going on in your music world this week?
Rehearsing for my band. We're finally able to get back out like some people are now, which is great, after 2 years of doing, nothing but playing with yourself, as the saying goes. And, it's just kind of getting back to it. Gear-wise, I'm just kind of chopping and changing. I did, Brandon, you're down there, but I did pick up a really nice Murphy Lab 57 gold top that I like a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And that's great.
Just walking by?
Just walking by. Just grabbed. I don't know whose it was, but it's mine now. Finders keepers.
Was that not too long ago? Because I saw a gold top down, I just got, for some reason I got sidetracked and I thought you were speaking of an original one, and I do you remember saying Murphy Lab.
Yeah.
Did you pick it up at the garage there?
I did not. I did, but I did earlier, acquire something else from the garage, but I did not get this from there. I just found it at a dealer, and they, offered a pretty good price, and I couldn't resist it because I really like what they're doing with that stuff, And I'm becoming old, I didn't start off thinking the relic thing was necessary and all that for me, like going back, unless you're restoring an old guitar like you used to. The neck was already worn and you're refinishing it, so you wanted to make it look like they matched and that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
But, I really, aside from the fact that they're making great guitars, I like I just like the way it plays, Otherwise, it's been all, Fender history and that kind of stuff and old Fenders for me around here. But musically, I'm just excited to be getting together in rooms with people and playing again,
Yeah.
It's hard to think about, and I find the more I'm actually playing in real situations, the less I'm sort of spending my time fussing around with gear and changing my stuff, and swapping my pedals every other day and stuff. It's just like, well, this works. I'm going to play, so I'm going to actually go out and do what I'm supposed to do with it,
Yeah.
Nice.
So what's the name of your band?
Well,
and what kind of music?
we're going to get in all that. Just relax. We're
Jeez.
going to interview him, man.
Oh, is that what this show is about?
He's got a long history.
Sorry, Todd.
Let's see. Jared, about yourself.
So what's the name of your no?
You dog.
Thank you, Jared.
So I was in Ohio last week, and I got to do the last podcast with you guys in person, which was
That was
pretty fun.
sweet.
It was awesome. Went, and then I had a slice with Dudzik afterwards. That was awesome. And then the next day, I got up and went up to Lay's Guitars Repair, and they also have the loft. And a long time ago, not a long time ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, you walk in, and there's the old guys in the back working on all the guitars. And there's old Don and another fella that I forgot his name.
It's like Old Town Main Street and an Old Town glass front shop and a whole bunch of old guys in there.
Yeah.
Working on
old
guitars.
wood that's never.
I go up there now.
It's a time capsule.
It was,
Yeah.
but they've remodeled it. You walk in now and you go in the back. It's still, old timey looking. But it's a lot more clean. It's very organized, and there's only Dan Shin and his brother, and they're the oldest ones there.
What town is this in, Jared? I missed it.
Akron, Ohio.
Oh, in Akron. Okay.
Yeah, so now it's Dan's daughter. She's working on guitars. She's from what I've heard, she's really good at it. And then these two younger gentlemen, younger than me, and I felt weird. I used to like to go in there and just rub elbows with the old guys and make fun of them for being old. And now I can't. Now I'm one of the old guys that walk in. I'm just the old, annoying fat guy that walks in there now to these younger kids.
What did the old annoying fat guy pick up when he was there?
I got me a D12 28. Yeah, it's a 1976 D12 28.
Is it a D28 12 string?
Yes, it is.
Then it's a D28 12.
D28 12, 12, 28, 12, D28.
10-4.
Okay. So anyway, it's a beautiful 12-string Martin guitar from 1976.
That's the one you were talking about a couple of podcasts ago.
Yeah.
It is. And I cannot believe how easy it is to play this guitar.
Huh.
And it's
Nice.
the neck is straight as an arrow. I think it sat in a closet for a long time too, because it's in very good shape. Kind of like your guitar, Tony Bolonsky, that Gibson that you brought in.
Oh, yes.
It's old, but it's in a really good shape. The neck is straight as could be, like I said before. The bridge is too. It's not popping out or anything. Sounds really good. Really impressed with it. Super happy with it. Glad I have it.
Awesome.
And I had a good time there. And I drove back out of a rental car. It's all black, and I got pulled over.
Huh.
And
Wonder why.
I was doing maybe 4 or 5 over, and the
10.
cop. No, I was just going with the flow. It was raining, and the cop said there was another cop off duty that said I was going 90 and fishtailing everywhere.
Oh boy.
I could believe.
Yeah, I believe that.
No. So I said, no, not me. I wasn't going that fast. This car can't even fishtail. It's all-wheel drive. So, there goes that. And he came back. He said, well, yeah.
It's my cousin Vinny over here.
Can't get you.
All right.
So I did not get anything. I got a little warning or whatever.
Well, you got lucky.
Yeah, I'd say
I did.
so.
The guy he couldn't prove anything anyway.
Yeah.
Todd, what about you?
What about you? Did you get pulled over?
I didn't, but I pulled over to Tony's and dropped off the book that we're going to talk about, and I picked up the Rickenbacker that we were discussing.
A Rickenbacker?
Yeah, a Rickenbacker, one of several. He's like, well, there's this one and 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 this one.
Yeah, we went through a few.
We did. So Tony let me borrow his. Was it the red? What's the burst called? The red burst.
Fire glow.
Fire glow. That's right. That was a test. You passed.
Okay.
And that's a 330.
Well, it's a Rose Morse 1997.
Rose Morse 1997. So it's got the F hole in it instead
Standard
of the
F hole. Yeah.
Standard
Not a
F hole
slash.
instead of the slash.
Yeah.
Which for some reason I was like, but whatever. I took that home and I played a couple of my guitars just so I could hear like what the sound difference is, the major sound difference. And I played it through the Supro, Black Magic, and I didn't run any pedals on it at all. All I did was just kind of like pumped up the literal volume on the Supro, and just so where it was pushing, and then plugged in the Rickenbacker, and it sounded absolutely fantastic. I mean, it really sounded good, especially through that Supro, which is not a bright amp. It's not dark. I mean, it's warm. It isn't. It doesn't sound. It's not real dark sounding or anything. And it sounded great. And it's funny because it's one of those guitars where it's known for certain sounds, and so I started playing a couple things that I knew to be of that ilk, and I was like, wow, that's the sound. It's right there.
Yep.
I mean, it's unmistakable.
Yep.
It was pretty neat.
This is a particularly good one. This is one of the reissue Rose Morse models. About out of every 330 or 360 that I've owned, it's by far one of my favorites.
It sounded great. I really, really like the neck on it. I mean, when I do another guitar, I will probably ask for that, two-spec neck profile.
That neck is something people have trouble with too, isn't it? If anything, to some extent.
They can be, and that's it's. We just did a Rickenbacker 101 with Kenny Howes last week, and it's one of those things. People either love them or hate them. Mm-hmm. This one, and I a number of other people have borrowed it to play.
It feels like a Telecaster neck.
Yeah, it is. It's thin, but it's not as thin as some of the Ricks that I've owned over the years.
Yeah.
This one feels really good, and I don't know. It's just like any other guitar company, they hit one out of the ballpark every once in a while, and I think this is one of them.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a little on the. How do I not light? It's not light like as in weight. It just feels. I'm used to more substantial feeling guitars, and this was less substantial. But that's the nature of the guitar.
That's why Pete Townsend loved to wreck them, because he couldn't smash up Strats and Tellies.
It feels like it would easily wreck the body. The body.
You could probably do some damage.
Yeah, but it was a real delight to play. So thank you for letting me borrow that.
Anytime.
Anthony. All right. We are going to do this right now.
Hey, Jared.
Yo, Blonsky.
So if your Martin D2812 was electric, would you be able to run that through a pedal board?
You could, yes.
And, I mean, how would you do that? I mean, would you just plug it in and use a bunch of crazy, goofy, extra long, weird patch cables?
Nice guitar. No way.
Mismatchy cables?
What would you do? What would you do?
I would absolutely, positively, without a doubt, use Tour Gear Design patch cord cables.
That sounds like a good idea, but can you afford that?
Absolutely. They range all bunch of different sizes and shapes and whatnots, and they start around under $6 a piece.
Wow.
Yep.
Are they reliable though?
Yeah, they're absolutely reliable. They fit everywhere onto the pedal, especially the tiny little mini pedals with the rear jack whatevers, and they all fit everywhere because they're tiny and durable.
Yes, they are. You can go to tourgeardesigns.com/discount/the guitar knobs, or just go to tourgeardesigns.com and in the coupon code, just put in the guitar knobs.
The guitar knobs, and save yourself 10%. And now 10% on already great priced, not greatly priced.
Easy for you to say.
I can't talk today. I quit. You're telling me that?
I'm telling you that. In fact, somebody posted this week, they basically just bought a whole bunch of cables. They're redoing their whole board. And I was like,
smart move.
That's a great move. So tourgeardesigns.com and go get your 10% off with the coupon code TheGuitarKnobs. You will be happy, happy, happy. And now, Jared.
Let me get a little bit of this.
1, 2, 3. 4 on the floor. All right, Dave Hunter, thank you so much for joining
I know what you did.
our show today. We're really happy to have you, and we desperately want to hear your 4 on the floor.
Oh, well, I'm going to start off with a crazy, strangely rehoused pedal, but it's a Roger Mayer Spitfire pedal. Spitfire Fuzz. Does anybody know that one? You've probably seen it. It's in the red. It's in his rocket-shaped enclosure.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And it's the red one, and it's called Spitfire Fuzz. And I got this pedal from Roger Mayer himself. This might take up my entire 4 on the floor.
Wow.
But when I was writing the guitar pedal handbook, and this is it when I still lived in Southwest London, my wife and I and our 2 kids, I think we had then, maybe we just had 1, lived in Teddington in Southwest London, which was a stone's throw from where Roger Mayer himself lived. And I had known him through the course of being an editor of the guitar magazine in London over there, and had gone freelance and was just writing this guitar pedal book. And Roger said, well, yeah, I'll come and talk to you about the pedals. So he sat out at this pub in the beer garden for a couple hours and talked about pedals. And I recorded his interview. And his interview is in that book. I don't know if that's one that Tony has or not.
Oh, yeah, I have it.
Yeah, Roger's in there. And Roger became a really good friend. And anecdotally, I was, and this all sounds all boastful, but maybe people don't care who Roger Mayer's friends are anyway. But he's a good guy. But I was the only guy that year who wasn't part of the company to be invited to the company Christmas party. So that was kind of exciting.
Oh, that's very cool.
Wow.
Isn't that kind of cool?
That's super cool.
There's a picture of Roger out on the internet, and I think a picture must be in that book too. I think it's his portrait in the book, but it's Roger standing in a gardeny looking area, smiling and holding up a red Spitfire Fuzz pedal. And you can just probably Google Roger Mayer Spitfire Fuzz and find that. And
no, we didn't just do that. What are you talking about?
You didn't just do that? Of course not. but I took that picture of him myself in that beer garden when he was about 4 pints in, and I was probably only 2 pints in. But Roger's a loquacious guy and a real character and an extremely brilliant guy too. And that's just a great sounding, straight up kind of fuzz. It's a kind of slightly later 70s era silicone fuzz, not a germanium fuzz. But it's really simple, 2 knobs, and it's kind of his like update on that old 2-knob smiley face platform, to some extent. But it's just reliable. It can go from being a kind of a light-ish distortion to just being kind of a nasty early to mid-70s fuzz. And it's just a cool sounding pedal, and it has a lot of sentimentality attached to it.
And they are definitely not there. Well, I know there's a handful of different versions of that, but the original red ones are not cheap.
It doesn't seem like they are. I mean, and this wasn't way, way back. This was, the one I've got from him is like 2002 or something, 2003 maybe, which is when we're talking at that time. Yeah, and I don't think you see a whole lot of those around. So that was a fun one. My second one, I'm going to go with, this gets challenging. I think I'm going to go with the Blackout Musket Fuzz. It's another fuzz. And this seems odd because currently I don't have either of these fuzzes on my board, but just because they don't suit entirely what, we're doing in the current band. But it's something I enjoy a ton. And I love Blackout Effector's Musket Fuzz because it just has a lot of controllable parameters, but without getting, sometimes if you stick too many knobs on a fuzz pedal, it just kind of gets weird and you can't even find the settings where the thing actually sounds any good, Mm-hmm. And this one I think just sounds fantastic. You can get a whole range of kind of voicings out of it, and yet so much of it just sounds gnarly and chewy and just really thick and heavy, but yet dynamic and controllable. And
awesome.
I like that one a lot. Yeah.
Very
and they did a double one. You know how Earthquaker does the double? Is it Hoof Reaper? I think they do a double one. Mm-hmm. And Blackout does a double Musket something, and I forget what the second one is there. And I had the 2 of them together, but it was too many, it was too big, and I didn't need the second one all that much, so I just got the straight up Musket.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that guy. Full Tone Super Trem. I like that pedal a lot. And I've been a tremolo addict for many years, And, there are times when that was almost the only pedal I needed to have in some ways.
There is a lot of tremolo in your music.
Oh yeah, you checked it out, didn't you? In that the earlier stuff, yeah. And the Super Trem, I've tried a lot of tremolo pedals and a lot of trems on amps and stuff, and used to think I had to have an amp that had trem built in. But the Super Trem was so good, I thought, like, why do you limit yourself to amps that have tremolo built in? Because it just sounds great, And I even like it. I've been using it like as a signal conditioner with the intensity turned all the way down and the speed all the way down, so you don't hear any tremolo effect, but it just sweetens the signal and sounds fantastic, like for recording if you're just doing a dry track or something.
That's a great pedal. I have one of those.
Yeah.
Have had
Do you
it.
like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was in going down the same rabbit hole trying to find the perfect trem, and because I had a couple of amps at the time that didn't have that in it, built into it.
Yeah.
And that one, I mean, I think out of everything that I tried, that's the only one that I've kept. Although I am tempted to pick up one of the Strymon Flints.
I've got a Flint, and the Flint does sound good. And just now I'm occasionally using the Flint on one board, when there's, depending on what needs to be bundled with what, if it needs a reverb and stuff like that, just because it's handy having the two together. And the variations in that harmonic vibrato in the Flint does sound really good if you want that kind of almost phasey sound, phasery, kind of analog phasery type sound out of that. Yeah, no, that's such a clever product from Strymon anyway. But this full-tone Super Trem, cool stuff. And is that 4?
No, that was only 3.
It was only 3. I was then going to go with, and strangely, this is another one that's not on my board. I mean, I could run through what's on the board. There's not a whole lot on there because it's pretty much just straight up kind of indie rock, power pop stuff. But I'd say the Voodoo Lab Wazoo is something I was remembering a couple days ago that I enjoyed a lot because I got it out to put it, you have to have it in front of a fuzz, and then it's just not even considering the auto wah and step wah functions. I don't know if that pedal's gotten a whole lot of credit, but I think it's a really good sounding wah wah pedal. And it's got that really vocal kind of slightly gnarly if you catch it just in the right place. And I don't mean for a cocked wah sound, but, actually moving it, you can just really get it to do that vowel-y sort of thing. That make it sound like it's talking, especially through the right fuzz.
Like vowel.
That's the one. Yeah. Wow, 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 wow. The wow, wow pedal. And I used that a lot on a project a few years ago, and we just kind of got really hooked on it and just thought this was a lot of fun. So that's the 4, the Voodoo Lab Wazoo.
Sweet. That's a great.
That's 3 brand new ones that we've added to the list.
Yeah.
You must have done what before the Super Trem? You must have done.
Oh yeah, that was on.
Yeah, Super Trem has been on before, but the other 3 have not.
Nice.
Yeah, I love it when we get new ones. That was a delightful list, and 10 extra points for having. You can tell when we've got a writer on because you get a 25-cent word like loquacious, which for those who are like still trying to figure out what loquacious is.
It cost me 50 cents earlier today. Yeah. So.
That one probably cost you several bucks for the pints.
You're getting it cheap.
But that is tending to talk a great deal or talkative.
There you go.
So, Mr. Man, we got to talk to you about this amazing book in front of us. We're gonna set this up, and then we're gonna like kind of step back a little bit and kind of talk about like how you came into being able to do this. Then we're going to go back into the deep stuff of the book, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So explain to our audience what book we have in front of us.
The book is called Fender 75 Years, and that's just like the short, snappy title that tells you that it's the authorized 75th anniversary Fender history book. And it was published by Quarto Books. And actually, I think it's the imprint Motor Books is probably on the spine. I have to turn around and look on the shelf. But it's authorized by Fender, so it's kind of a licensed, fully participant sort of thing with Fender involved. And that's what it is. It's just to celebrate, since Fender itself was officially founded in 1946. This is the 75th anniversary of the company. So we thought it was important to put a book out and celebrate.
it's kind of interesting that I don't recall hearing an awful lot about the 75 years this year from Fender.
You know what? That is kind of, and the funny thing is, they have been putting it on some of the promotional material and on some of the releases and things like that recently. If you look at certain things, you'll see it. I started to see it appearing, but it was something that they weren't overtly leaning into, And my editor, Dennis Pernew at Cordo, who's a great project editor, and put the whole idea together, and then talked to me about if I'd like to do it, and I said sure I would. So I have to give him credit for kind of just designing the whole idea in the first place, and went to Fender and kind of said, it's your 75th anniversary, and they said, oh, okay.
Which is really weird considering I figure a lot of us listening right now, including myself, have a 50th anniversary model from them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the big companies, usually like an excuse to celebrate anything because it's an occasion to do that. And they
a big one.
Oh yeah, and they did really get into it, and it was just kind of like, oh, thank God somebody mentioned it,
Wow, yeah.
But they were really supportive, and several people there helped out a lot with the research and with opening up the photo archives. That was the big one, really, and doing a lot of putting in a lot of hours and a lot of figurative legwork, digging out a lot of old photos, and provided piles and piles of stuff, digitally speaking.
Well, I just wanted to congratulate you on being able to consolidate what could have been thousands of pages. Actually, every chapter could have been its own book, but you were able to condense all of that down into 224 pages, and it covers everything from the very beginning to even some of the newest stuff that's out there. So congratulations on that. That had to be a tremendous
beginning.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate that.
I have a lot of books, and some of them really dive deep. And this one, I will say that this is probably, if you're going to own one Fender book and you want just the general knowledge of Fender from the beginning to current, this is probably the one to get, because it doesn't take a deep dive in a lot of areas, but we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that I really liked in each chapter.
I want to append your statement. I would like to maybe just add a little asterisk. When you said the general knowledge, what I found to be remarkable about this is that I got that general knowledge, but every time I turned the page, I got enough of something that was like, oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I got a lot of I didn't know that's in here. And that, to me, that was really the neat thing, because I wasn't like, wow, this is going to be a real commitment to go through. And it wasn't so lightweight. And this is something that David and I talked about before you came on the show.
Yeah.
Should we look at this like a coffee table book, like just a really cool picture book? Or is this the kind where you're just like, okay, I'm 25 pages in and I can't see straight because there's so much information, and it's sort of information overload to the point where it's like, I don't know that I need all this. And you absolutely hit the sweet spot on this.
Well, thanks for that. Thanks for both observations, because that was really the challenge. And it was, and again, Dennis Pernew at Cordo was, we talked this through a lot together, and just, worked hard at deciding how to pitch it, because you can't, this has got to be Fender's this is their one big 75th anniversary book, and it's got to try to encompass just about everything they've done in 75 years. And if you do that with so much detail that only the really most severely afflicted guitar nerds are going to be interested, then you're going to lose a lot of people's interest. And at the same time, one of the things that a lot of people, and I'm not going to read the reviews of these books. I try not to, because, out of all the nice things that people say, you always get some idiot that pisses you off for the next two. But, in the case like this one, there's going to be somebody saying, well, they didn't cover this, they didn't cover that, and they did, but there was a strict limit, word count limit, imposed on me that was really probably about half of the amount of words I would write for the average book, or even less than half. And it wasn't like, do more if you want to. It was like, no, you can't do more, because they've got production costs, and every color picture costs a lot to print and license and all that stuff. So you can't write more than 35,000 words, because we're not going to print more than 35,000 words, and the pages are going to, everything's going to fit this way. It was really strictly laid out, So I do feel there are things that could have been in there that aren't, and yet, because Fender's, had their fingers in so many other crazy ideas over the years that don't get a lot of play, but it would be like, well, if I didn't include that, what should I have left out, instead to put it in,
Well, as someone who also works in an industry that, all of my work is guided by parameters. And I can appreciate the one thing that I love about parameters, and this is why I didn't become like a fine artist or something, is because I thrive off of working from boundaries.
I think a lot of people do, and a lot of things that are essential. And then that's a kind of window into the publishing industry too, whether it's magazines or books or newspapers or whatever. Like if somebody's at the New York Times is uncovering an expose on something, they'll say, yeah, go for it, do what you need. But if it's a book, there's always a limit. They don't want less than X 80,000 words, but don't give us more than 90,000, because we're going to lose our shirts in, reproduction and print costs and all that stuff, So it's kind of like, well, we're going to get what we can get in here. But it was fun, and it was part of the challenge with the Fender 75 Years book, because it's, so many of those stories, a lot of guitar guys and gals know, obviously, right? And we're familiar with a lot of this stuff, but how can we present this in a kind of a historical and social context that is, interesting and somewhat fresh, and make it a narrative that's worth reading, rather than just a list of facts and bullet points and stuff, and, and give some, why a new pickup development was important, and how they learned to make something differently with a neck attachment or with a truss rod or something, that some reader might not be interested, but without going so deep that it just gets over the top, and everybody, 99 out of 100 people want to put it away,
Yeah. Well, speaking of, bullet points, that's one of the things that I really liked, because especially earlier chapters, each chapter kind of is a recap, and it talks about some of the firsts, some of the prominent features, when you're talking about like the Strat and the tremolo and different things like that. And even some of the, like the Tolex coverings, when it shifted over from tweed into Tolex. And I thought, and there were a lot of photos in this book that I hadn't seen before, that I thought were really cool. And I think even if, there's other people like me that are book nerds and have other Fender books, this one still has a place in the collection.
That was important too, and that was part of the fun for me. Although I'm like titled as the writer on there, it's fun to participate in and put a lot of my time into trying to track down just the right photos and conferring about which photos were worth showing, because they tell part of the story. Since we were limiting the words to some extent, and which is not to imply, like, if anybody picks up the book, as you would say, you wouldn't look through them and think, oh, there aren't many words in here. It's still,
no, it's
perfectly
a right amount.
Full book, and it tells the story, and it's still narrative there. But we wanted the pictures to tell a lot of that story, and to really, we had probably about 20 pictures left on the cutting room floor for every one photo we used. They were all interesting stuff, but.
You know what they say about pictures.
That's exactly right. See, and count
those pictures. There's a lot more words in here than you think.
Yeah.
Especially pictures of Stratocasters.
Those are worth 10, 12,000.
Yeah. Dave, I think when I came to drop the book off to Tony, the biggest thing that we were sharing on the porch was just that point that he was making about, I found myself going through this, and I kept saying, wow, because, I think there's so many things that we take for granted that have just always been, like it's like Tolex. It's not something we think about, but he figured that out. He's like, you know what we should put on these things? This stuff.
Tolex. Why not Tolex?
Exactly.
Plastics. It's the future.
I can get it for 10 cents a foot.
I know.
Exactly. And it does. And that was fun. I mean, fun for me because I feel like it was, rediscovering the story myself as I worked through it. But, just that. Yeah, I think that was another part of the objective, obviously, too, is to show them as they're a company with regular people in there coming up with ideas and working to make good products and putting this stuff together. And every so often in the process of that, they're really hitting the ground with these, groundbreaking ideas that are revolutionizing the music industry and, having an impact on popular music in the process, not just the stuff you make it with, but the sounds that people make and the way music goes as an art form.
Right. Well, I think you just touched on something important. This is not a dusty old archive of remember the days when, it is very much, we are here because of these things, but also we are here.
Yes.
Now at this point.
No, thanks. That's a good point too. And also, Fender as a company was very, very interested and concerned to make sure we did, because it's very easy to lean on the old history. And, everyone has to admit that's, the pre-CBS years and maybe up to some of the late 60s and stuff. Sure, that's what everybody dreams about because that's the gear people want to own. But, as far as the artists who are using it today or in recent years and the gear that a lot of working musicians have turned to in more recent years, we wanted to give that justice and show a lot of the younger artists, and show a broad range, show some diversity in there and show what the Fender player looks like.
There's a big giant
today.
picture of Johnny Marr, who's one of my absolute favorites, who we mentioned on the show earlier. So
and I think we even got Biba Doobie in there, who I just kind of went crazy over a few years ago.
One of my favorite parts of this, and it was early on in the book, but I've heard about this before. This message, this sort of. It's not really a threat so much as a you should stop now. Yeah, from Gretsch.
Yeah,
a picture of the actual telegraph.
That
Gretsch sent to Clarence. You need to stop.
Yeah,
I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, and it's a great story, but it's fun to see the telegram. And then I think we got it in there. I should have the book in front of me, but the letter that Don Randall wrote to send out to all the sales managers about we have to stop using this name. Does anybody have an idea for a new one?
Yeah, it's on the same page as the telegram.
Yeah. And that's something. I think I maybe knew the telegram existed, so we found that, but I don't think I had seen that Randall letter before. And that was something that one of the Fender guys went in there and dug out for us.
I like to think that some smart guy said, So we need to rename this because of this telegram that somebody got.
Yeah.
Ooh, telegram.
It's let's call it the Telecaster for the telegram.
You would think, and yet that's not the story, right?
No. Someone much more clever. So okay, let's let people kind of slobber over this for a second, and go hit. First of all, where can people get this thing?
Yeah, I want one.
You can get it at your favorite bookseller. The usual, the big name, the biggest business in the world sells them. We all know who that is. The publisher sells them direct, I believe, which I didn't realize. I think I pointed somebody to them the other day at Quarto Books. I don't know if it's .com. You'll find them. They're out there.
Yeah, I think it's actually on the spine. It has, by the way, it's this beautiful book, and it has it comes in a slip. Is that what you call a slip cover? What would you call it?
Yeah.
It's a thick cardboard slip cover that kind of looks like a Fender amp.
Yeah, it's a tweed, like a little narrow box that it slides into, which is like a little tweed box. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is quartonows.com.
There you go.
QUARTOKNOWS.com. So you can get it directly from them too.
Exactly.
Now, okay, let's let people do that. Now, they didn't just pull a writer off the street to do this. You've got history doing this, but somehow you had to get history because they couldn't just pull a writer off the street to do your other books either. So how does someone help us understand your background and why you are qualified for this.
How do you get into this game? It's, I mean, this might be my 18th book. Maybe Tony probably knows.
Yeah, it's up there. I know it's more than a dozen. So
it's
yeah,
something like that. But I got into this as a way of messing around with guitars and amps and gear and still making, something of a steady living. I was an English major in college, and everybody knows what that leads to. I went to Kenyon College in Ohio.
It leads to loquaciousness.
Yeah, and I grew up in Cincinnati, and it does lead to loquaciousness. Yeah, so I should have said that earlier, but I'm an Ohio boy myself.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and but yeah, so I went after college. I went over to London and played in bands for a while, and then ended up marrying a woman that I'd met on a junior exchange program, and we lived there for years. And I played in bands for a few years and realized, as 999 out of 1,000 guitarists realize, and it's a hard way to make a living. So I had always written, and I'd always been interested in journalism. So I sort of segued into journalism and didn't do any music journalism for 8 or 10 years because I thought I'll keep them separate because I was still playing and stuff. And then a job came up as a music editor at a news agency. It was just general music editor. So I did that for a while. And then a job came up as the editor of a guitar magazine. And I thought, why the hell not? You might as well go and, blank where you eat or whatever,
Which magazine was
right
that?
Where you eat.
It's called The Guitar Magazine, which is it's the same magazine that is now published online at guitar.com.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Which is a real coup of a URL to get, obviously. But so I was the editor there for 3 or 4 years, and then kind of went sideways and started doing the books and working freelance for guitar magazines, and moved back to the U.S. in 2004 and started writing for Guitar Player and Vintage Guitar while still doing other books. So it was just kind of it was really, I guess it is kind of the perfect storm to have kind of been a journalist by trade and a musician, and just kind of say, oh well, let's put them together.
Yeah, you're it's like you're like Bob Uecker.
Why, thank you. In so many ways.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say you got into the writing side of it, so you could have legitimate tax write-offs for your guitar purchases.
No, but I did find that that's really, really convenient. Yeah.
I'm just starting to learn that.
Yeah, well, you can do it.
I haven't
too
applied it. I'm just learning about it.
Yeah. Now you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was it. I mean, so I, really did go through the kind of writing side of the trade, of kind of straight up journalism and then feature writing and stuff like that, and being up into an editorial position in that, so it's fun work. Like, it's, as you would think, like a lot of guys, I'm sure friends of yours envy the kind of what you're doing here with Guitar Knobs, because it's great and fun and everything. You think, God, what a blast to be able to do that, and to write about guitars and mess with guitars all day and stuff. But, it's also it's a job, There are times when you think, like, I'm sick of it. I don't want to see another guitar today. Yeah.
So, just out of curiosity, I mean, a book like this, how long does it take to, from conception to finished product?
This was probably, I'm trying to think. I have to go back and look at my planner when I said start Fender 75 book today. This was probably 4, 5, 6 months. I mean, It's probably about 4 months of writing and, a couple months of picking up all the
really fast
production pieces.
I thought you were going to say years, but
I was thinking maybe it was about 7 to 9 months.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of pretty much just get down to it and do it. I mean, because when it's going, like I said, this one's shorter than usual. It's like 35,000, I think was the limit I was given, which is still a lot of words, obviously. And I think if I'll get down to it, it'll be 1,500 or 2,000 words a day once you kind of get going. And then you obviously go back over it and then make it good. But it's, a lot of it then is just kind of also the production aspects and sort of like we said, a lot of legwork chasing photos, and a lot of what we wanted to do for this, which I think we might have spoken about, Todd, is we didn't want a lot of the standard flat against neutral background guitars and amps and stuff like you used to have all the time in guitar books, you know. And like, there's nothing wrong with a guitar that looks like somebody's played it for 50 years, or, you know, an amp that's got, maybe it's got a change speaker when you look around the back, or it's got some dinged up Tweed or Tolex or whatever.
It's not a museum book.
It's not a museum piece, because you want stuff that people look like they've really played. And when you see an immaculate museum piece, that's cool too. And you know, it's nice to see those and you show them. But like the guitars, you know, leaning against other gear or in cases or in a, you know, dusty bar or something like that, you know, it's kind of more interesting to see them in context, I think, than just to see the flat. You know, we dragged them all into the studio one day and shot 200 guitars against a white backdrop, you know.
That's a massacre.
Yeah, exactly. And the blood was everywhere. But, you know, that was part of the fun too. And, you know, some, you know, so-called just ordinary Joes contributed photos of people I, you know, bumped into online or knew of who had something, or vintage dealers, and got in touch and said, hey, do you have somebody who can take a really good high quality picture of that thing? And, you know, sure enough, it would end up, we'd just get people for the fun of it contributing a picture here or there to something we didn't have, you know. And that's half of the fun too.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I have a question for you.
Jared.
If Fender called you up tomorrow and said, hey, Mr. Hunter, we really appreciate your book that you wrote about Fender,
but
we would like, no, not but we would like to offer you one current model of your choice on our normal USA line. What would that, and it, not made in Mexico, not custom shop, just normal USA line. What model would you choose?
Oh, that is a good question. And first, I would say I can't do that because I'm a professional and I, you know, cannot imply. But this would be different because I did write the book, you know, somewhat for Fender. And well, yeah. And in this case, I actually, when I think about it for a while, I'd say, no, you know what, you're right. I can take that gift. Thanks very much. I did think it over, and I, you know, computed all the ethical ramifications, and now I'm gonna thank you very much. I think I would take, you know, I mean, I'm kind of a Telly addict, but I think I would probably go with a Jazzmaster for fun, you know.
Nice. Interesting choice.
Because I've kind of got the Telly I want, and I've kind of got the Strat I want, and you know, I think I would maybe give that a shot. You know, I like what they did with the Johnny Marr Jaguar, though. That's a great guitar.
Yeah. What color guitar guy are you?
I like a faded Lake Placid blue, or something that is like a seafoam green if it's not too greeny. You know, if it's got the little faded yellowing to it, I like that a lot.
Nice.
That's where I had in my head as far as your color goes. I was like, well, I know he's going to say seafoam.
Thank you. Well, I'm taking that as a compliment.
Yeah.
I know it's not, but I'm going to take it.
No,
anyway.
It is.
I have a friend with one of those, and it wasn't the exact shade he wanted, so he had it refinished to the exact shade.
Oh,
it's crazy. Yeah. He's real particular about his blues and greens, but my favorite that I actually have is like a early 90s Strat Plus. It's purple.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So it's that's probably my favorite Fender guitar.
Oh cool. Nice.
You need to talk to one of our former guests, Seafoam pedals. They're exclusively all seafoam green, and they're really nice pedals.
Oh, I'll check them out. I will. That's great.
Okay, so you also, aside from being a prolific writer, you know a thing or two about playing. You've been in several bands, one of which you know, when you were sending me over the information, I was like, the Molines. I've definitely heard that before. And I started listening, and it was a great jog back, and I listened to it for quite some time because it's just great listening music. So walk us through your, I guess, maybe your band history.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like a lot of people involved in guitars, you know, you find out they played in bands one way or another, you know, and as I said, you know, I went out there with the intention of playing professionally, and kind of, you know, you can play kind of professionally for a couple of years and say, yeah, I'm playing professionally, but it doesn't mean you're making more than, you know, $150 a week or something or whatever, you know, the usual deal. But after playing in a couple other things in London in the early '90s, because I go way back, I was one of the founding members of a band called Drugstore, which went on. Once I realized how little money we were going to make, I kind of quit, But they did go on to be signed to 3 kind of significant indie labels. I left the band, under good terms, and said, I'll stick around until we find a good replacement and everything. But I was, a founder and was on the first couple of singles we released and stuff. And then we were signed to Go Discs, which at the time was the label that had Paul Weller and the Laws,
Oh yeah.
There She Goes fame. So, and the Brand New Heavies and stuff. So they were, and that was all kind of contemporary stuff at the time. So they were a kind of happening indie label. But, I was kind of, sometimes you can get to a situation where you feel like you're overqualified not to be playing in that situation. But like I'd put in all this education and I'd learned to write and I did all these other things. And now I'm going to go and, travel around Europe sleeping in a van, making like 50 pounds a week or something. So I just kind of grew up and got real and went off and regretted it for, for many years thinking, because then a couple of years later, I played with them on a couple of occasions, a couple of live situations where they just said, oh, just join in to fill out the sound and stuff. Like on a BBC radio broadcast and stuff, and that was fun. But they are best known still to this day for releasing a single with Tom York from Radiohead, which was a duet with our singer, and called Kill the President or something, or El Presidente or something. And that was kind of their claim to fame. But so after that, for many years, I would just kind of played as a hobby, and went into journalism and became a day job guy. And did all that stuff and, got various things together that didn't get off the ground. But we moved back to the States in 2004, and I got this band, the Molines, together, which was, only ever an independent kind of self-released band. But it was, you'd call it, electrified Americana or kind of alt twang, not quite alt country because it wasn't really country, but, roots rock. And occasionally we'd go real honky tonk and do a song just for fun,
Yeah. I think it reminds me of what was happening in the, I guess the university South at the time, you know what? Yeah, there was a pretty good scene in that stuff for a while. And even, I'm up here about an hour north of Boston. I'm in southern Maine now. We lived in Portsmouth, New Hampshire for 17 years until just now since we moved back. And there was a pretty good kind of Americana scene around, strangely, even in New England, and Boston itself had a pretty good music scene in that direction. So the Molines, we put out 3 albums and, got around a fair amount and, Were you singing on those, by the way?
I was singing on those, and playing the guitar parts. And then we had a
great
pedal
stuff.
steel player.
It really is good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
People, if you have not heard of the Molines, and that's Molenes, right?
That's right. Yeah. Not like the
Go check that out. It's great driving music too.
It was, and most of the songs are about cars and driving. Has to be one of those, but hopefully not like too obviously so. But it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun. They were good guys to play with. Zach Field was the drummer, and Andrew Russell the bass player, and Bruce Durr was our pedal steel player, and he's an absolute wizard on the pedal steel. Who was a session player in New York City for a while and then moved up here for work. And sometimes I'd have to just remember to keep playing the guitar because when he'd go into his solos or even just some of his atmospheric parts, it's just that sound just knocks you over when it's done right.
I got to imagine that has got to be probably one of the most lucrative positions or things to decide to do in the music industry. I'm going to be a pedal steel person, and I'm going to be really good at it.
Yeah, because there just aren't many. Yeah,
No.
yeah. And it took me like 5 years, and we were like an album and a half into that band before I kind of talked him into joining because like everybody said, well, he's the guy, So
that's cool.
For around here, yeah. So that was a lot of fun, and so that we just kind of had run our course. We didn't really break up, but there comes a time. I think we did 10 years or so of that. And, had a couple years in the wilderness and then kind of formed this band, which I'd want to do, which is kind of the other side of the coin, really, which is just more straight up indie rock kind of power pop stuff, which is called A Different Engine, and that's my current band.
And you have an album out with that, right?
We've got 2 albums out with that, and a third one that we're just starting to get into the works. Yeah. And that's been a lot of fun, but we kind of got hit, just as we got rolling, we got hit with COVID like everybody else did. So kind of, that took a bite out of everybody's fun, right? So kind of just getting rolling up again with that. And again, it's mostly guys who have played pretty seriously in the past, but none of us, we're not planning to, take it out on the tour bus or anything necessarily.
Yeah.
But trying to make the best music we can make, and you get down that trap of saying, well, this isn't only going to be for fun. But then, of course, you get real serious about how good you want it to be because it's
important to make things. It's important to leave something on the planet. You know what I mean? It
is. Make them the best you can make them, and it's, in guitar, indie rock, guitar, power pop, whatever, that stuff, there's kind of not, there's plenty of good bands playing it, but it's harder and harder to find it and hear it. You kind of have to go looking for it. So it's like, well, we want to just put out some of the stuff that we'd like to hear. So let's write music like that.
Yeah, right on.
So what's your current main rig when you're playing live?
My current main rig is, and it's a rig. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I thought I'm not playing one of those. Plenty of respect and everything, but just because they were becoming kind of the trendy go-to thing, I'm playing a Friedman amplifier.
Oh yeah,
okay.
And it's great. And Dave is an amazing designer and an amazing businessman. I think he's created this model that works brilliantly. And I was playing the small box 50-watt head and 212 cab, but the same old turn it down story.
Yeah.
So I'm playing mini Dirty Shirley, which is, their 20 water with 2 EL84s. And I had it comes as a 110 combo or a head, but I had it rehoused in a custom cab that Sour Mash Cabs made for me, which is a 112 cab, but still nice and portable. And it's great. I mean, everybody compliments the sound and it fits any venue. Even some of the larger venues I go to and think, well, now we'll really crank this thing up. And the guys, the sound guy's saying, oh, you'll need to turn the guitar down. And it's just, and
they all say that.
They all say that.
It's in their vocabulary.
And this is a 20-watt, guitar amp with the master on, 6. And so now you have to turn the master down to 4. So, and it is in the vocabulary, but it's just the reality that stage volumes have come way, way down.
Yeah.
And however macho you want to be about, you can only play through a 100-watt double stack. And yeah, that would sound great. But, maybe there are some places where that can be tolerated, but a lot of places you're just not going to get away with it. Or you're not going to get invited back,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's, years and years ago here in Columbus, I saw Jonathan Richman playing. He was just playing his ES 175 by himself. And he was notorious for having the quietest stage volume. I mean, really? And there was a point in the show where he actually, I think, captured more of the audience attention by being quieter. And people were like, if somebody,
it's like
had an outburst or whatever, they would, give him a dirty look or pummel him or something like that. But he would purposefully just play quietly and sing very softly. Yeah. And it just like people were like drawn to that.
It's kind of like when you can actually hear the brushes, the slow brushes on a drum head where you're like that, and that's the loudest sound. That's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah. And that was, I had the same kind of experience seeing Nick Lowe with Los Straitjackets.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought it was kind of a ruckus show, but there were points in the show where he would bring it way, way down, and you could literally hear the brushes on the snare head.
Yeah.
And it was super cool, and the audience was, it was a pretty good sized venue, but it was like you could hear a pin drop.
They're waiting for that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes it really intimate, doesn't it?
It really does.
It draws people in, like you said.
So, Dave, what's next? So you got this video. You got this book out, and when you put out a book, is that just like, all right, I'm on to the next book, or do you do signings, or what happens?
It used to be more, there's always, a little publicity like talking to you guys, which is great. And thank you very much, by the way, for having me on, because this is a really fun fun podcast you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Oh no, it's great stuff. And but
Tell
yeah,
your friends.
I will. Yeah, I will.
Go to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs.
Exactly. Yeah, they'll have to be listening. They'll listen to this one and then they'll get hooked.
Yeah.
But you know, it used to sometimes be straight on to the next one, you know, but now I'm always doing a lot of magazine work in between. And like, even while writing that book, like even in the thick of it, you know, like 40% of my work day was probably doing magazine articles because of deadlines and stuff, you know? So, you know, I mean, that's mostly what I'm on to now. That was shipped, you know, obviously a few months ago. So it's like, well, back we go, you know, Guitar Player and Vintage Mag and all that stuff.
I guess it's something that we probably didn't think about. It's like, I just finished it. Here's the book. No.
Yeah. Well, I know there exactly. It's always, there's a lead time and everything, but it's, you know, the honest answer is the next book used to usually start up pretty quickly, and now there's more lag in between. You know, partly out of my own choice, but also partly just because the industry's changing and people aren't buying, you know, to be honest, they aren't buying print books as much, you know, like this one will make more of a splash, hopefully, and seems to have done so already because it's an occasion and all that stuff. And, you know, it's got the Fender's name on it and everything. But, you know, the print industry is not doing as well as it was doing 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So, not that I was writing books 30 years ago, but you know, and magazines are, you know, it's just, I don't want to get it into the maudlin, like sad side of the whole thing, but you know, the same reason newspapers are dying and the same reason that guitar magazines are having a harder time. And,
Yeah.
you know, so there aren't as many books to write. And also, you know, what book am I going to write next? It's like, how many guitar amp and pedal books can you write? And it seems like there always is another one. And yet, by the same token, the publishers are having to be more selective about the topics. You know, an idea that they would have said 10 years ago, it said, yeah, let's do that. Now they'll say, well, we don't know if we can sell enough to justify that. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could we, you know, I'm guessing you'd be open to talk about some of your earlier books. And the one I wanted to just kind of get a feel for how you came up with the list of participants were Star Guitars and then Ultimate Star Guitars, which I brought in tonight for Todd to drool over.
And just a quick note. So he pulled that book out, he flipped to a page, and he started to hand it to me, and I put up my hand, and I mouthed the words Joe Strummer, and he had it turned to Joe Strummer's number one.
You knew.
Yeah. He knows
great.
me.
So did you come up with I imagine you had a much larger list, and you had to condense it down to, you know, to the famous guitars.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a list. That one, again, was one that the same production and project editor, Dennis Pernew at Cordo Books, and I worked on the idea together and the list together, and, you know, really kind of drummed up, you know, who could be there. And, you know, that's exactly like you guys would do. You know, you find out what can you fit, and you do a master list, and then you start crossing off names that you just can't fit in, you know. There are some other people, you know, with huge. We managed to sneak in a few favorites of ours that we respected a lot that might not be in there otherwise, I suppose.
Namingly,
I'd have to go back and look, okay. Because I'll probably name someone that we didn't get in because I thought we did, and then I'll be like, oh no, okay, that's one of what we cut.
I noticed I was left off the list. So.
Well, see, I was trying not to say, and you brought it up. I was trying to keep quiet about that. But you know, and just that, then kind of whittle it back down, you know, to what's going to be, you know, get some broad representation of different styles and different instruments and all that stuff. And the gist of that book, for anyone who doesn't know it, is, you know, these are all star guitarists, but kind of the guitar is the star. You know, it's mostly people who are strongly associated with one particular guitar, you know, and almost, or a type, you know, or a few, but most players have played several, but this is, let's have the guitar that is the star for this person, you know. So it was also mainly artists. You know, some people will be left, well, you didn't cover so-and-so or whatever, but that's because, you know, they just keep changing their guitar every couple of years and they aren't as strongly associated with one guitar, you know.
Yeah, totally. I get that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, you have many, many more to choose from. Tony, what else? Without going through all of them, we're going to touch on a couple of titles, and then we're going to roll off.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I also brought in
The
ultimate Fender book.
Right.
Which, actually, I really like the format of this book, and there's a Gibson book that is the same. You did this one with, looks like Paul Day.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that solved a problem that people were having about writing about guitars because it's tall and skinny.
It actually, the guitars fit the pages much better.
Yeah, and that's a book I don't even know if I have a copy. I can hardly remember, but I remember it was one that was like a publisher saying, "Oh, Paul's got some material on this stuff, and you were doing this thing. Let's like put your heads together and let's create this book that covers all that stuff." And it was kind of like just a catch-all, like let's get a lot of Fender stuff in there, you know.
Yeah, and there's some really, I mean, actually, I mean, some of the photos, and this will actually tie into our Would You Rather. I found a couple of things here in the back that we're going to talk about a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, the quality of the photography is great. I mean, again, it's not a complete list of everything, and someone, of course, will say, "Well, that guitar wasn't in there." But it's really it's a good place to start. And honestly, this one has a DVD with it that I've never looked at. So, I'm not sure what's on there, but. And then the other one that I brought in was the Electric Guitar Source Book: How to Find the Sounds You Like. And
that is that one that's illustrated? There's one that's not very much illustrated.
This one has a lot of black and white photos in it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
pictures of guitars, and what I found useful about this is you get sort of a history of some of the guitars, but you kind of get a feel for how to get the sounds that you like. Whether it's through pickups or effects pedals or amplifiers and things like that. So,
and that was the idea, yeah. And that was one with a different publisher. That's I mean, it was published and distributed in the U.S. also, but the production office was based in London. And that guy was more into doing like handbook series of things, like kind of they're leaning more how to while still being, gear nerd books, but not so much coffee table. But let's pick this up and read this section to find out why this type of bridge material might make the guitar sound brighter or warmer, or, leaning a little bit into kind of all the components, right, and all the different elements that contribute to the sound. So it's kind of a catch-all for that, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, there was a series in the UK, Paul Ballmer, I'm sure you know who he is, and they were kind of set up like Haynes Automotive repair manuals.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
and I thought that was very cool. And they covered the SG, the Telecaster, Stratocaster, a couple of other things. But yeah, kind of a little bit of a how-to manual combined with the history.
Those two exactly. Yeah, those do a good job. And I worked with Paul on one thing because he was also a videographer, and he directed the video for something we did for which might have been like the Ultimate Guitar Bible or something. They were going for all these Ultimate titles. And I think it was actually might have been the first in the series of the Ultimate Fender book and then the Ultimate Gibson book. And I think the Ultimate Fender book, if I'm thinking of the right one, I'll have to look it up while we're talking. But I think on that DVD, I think is like Carl Verheyen and I demonstrating lots of Fender guitars and amps.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to break it out and throw it in the old.
Indeed.
But that's the thing. It goes back. Does anybody have, a DVD player anymore?
I actually still have one.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
It.
Thanks, Todd.
Point being, if you like guitars and you like to sit around and get bedazzled by lore and
photography,
awesome pictures
and stories,
and some great stories and some fantastic writing, dig into what David has produced out there in the world. Lots of awesome books, and specifically the Fender 75 years commemorative book here, which is just outstanding. You got it. You guys have to get a hold of this.
I bought my copy while we were recording this.
Brilliant. Well done.
Played, Jared.
Yes.
Usually
it works.
We are going to mosey on over to Jared's neighborhood right now.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, as you well know, this point of the show gets really fun. We like to play a little game called Would You Rather? As usual, you're late for your show because you were walking down the street and you realize you forgot your guitar. The opening band kindly offers you to use one of their guitars. A mid-60s Fender Electric 12 or a late 1960 Fender Maverick / Custom. Tony Bolonsky, please explain.
Well,
and
I
the
think-
two guitars, and we'll have to pick which one.
Which one you'd rather play? So
The 12 is that's the droopy banana, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It always reminds me of
and
Clockwork Orange.
Dave, feel free to chime in. So the Electric 12 came out in the mid '60s, and it was a true electric 12-string guitar. As sales dropped off after CBS bought Fender, they had all these piles of bodies and necks that weren't selling. So I think they had a shop guy who was it Babe Simone.
That sounds right. That does sound right. Yeah. Babe,
And
I think so,
they
yeah.
said, "What can we do with this stuff?" So he takes a body over to the bandsaw and cuts out little sections of this and that, and comes up with what's called, I think the initial run was the Maverick, and then they changed it to the Custom. And these were basically leftover electric 12 bodies, pickups, control panels. But then, in their infinite wisdom, they decided that a Mustang bridge and tremolo would really work well in place of the other. And then they also took the droopy headstock, and I think on the initial run, they might have shortened it, and then they put a laminate on the front and back. So it's a 6-string guitar for the Maverick or Custom, versus the Electric 12, which obviously is a 12-string guitar.
But the 6-string is also got staggered split pickups.
As does the 12-string.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the...
Well, I was just getting that.
yeah, you were just saying that.
Yeah.
So the 6 pickups are widely spread apart
No.
on the headstock.
Yeah,
the tuners.
The tuning
Yeah.
machines, yes.
Tuners. Yeah, I'm sorry, not the pickup. I'm a pickup guy. I'm going to say pickup.
Pickup.
I meant tuners. So because of that, you can put enormous tuners on that headstock if you wanted to.
If you wanted to, but, again, Fender just used their
Right.
standard, at
Little
that time.
itty-bitty, yeah.
Well, they were the F-stamp tuners, I think, on that at that point in
little
time.
tiny tulipy thing.
We can go into some more nasty details
So
about it.
the
But
butt of the guitar is pointy. It has a pointy butt.
yeah, they made, I think, basically 3 cuts on
Yeah.
this guitar. Zip, zip, and zip.
Yeah, and it kind of has a shaved off upper horn there
Yeah.
from where. So
So I guess the bigger question is, which is the least desirable to play for your show? The 12-string, which is actually a really nice guitar.
yeah,
Don't want to say that's a bad instrument. Or the 6-string chopped up Maverick / Custom.
Wow.
that's an ugly guitar.
It's kind of an ugly guitar.
I mean, it's. I don't want to say it's ugly. It's just I think if you know what that's great for. Like I could see like the Black Angels or somebody like super psychedelic and kind of heavy playing that.
yeah.
Can you show handle a 12-string the electric though? I guess it's going to come down to that. Like whatever you think of the Maverick, if a 12-string is just going to sort of smash all over the sound of the band, you're going to have to go with the 6-string.
That's true. I mean, I guess it's going to depend on musical
You're
style.
playing a bunch
Tony,
of
what are
birds.
you doing?
Well, I mean, I think that I could pull off playing the 12-string. Yeah, I mean, at one point in time, I had more electric 12 strings of various makes and models than I think
you did.
anybody else, and I've pared that down for over the years. But I still dearly love the Fender Electric 12, and in fact, that was a studio model for many famous people, including Jimmy Page, Bob Dylan.
I imagine the Wrecking Crew played a bunch of those.
Beatles.
Yeah, I mean it's the 12-string, even though it wasn't a popular model to the public, it was still a very useful tool. Mm-hmm. So
indeed,
I think between the two of those,
you're doing the 12.
I'm doing the 12-string.
All right. Any particular color?
Shoreline gold.
Shoreline gold. Okay. Let's see, Jared. How about yourself?
Well, since I'm the rhythm player, Todd's the lead player.
What?
I'm going to go with
He's in your band.
Backwards.
He is in your band.
Right. In the band, in this particular Would You Rather, I'm going to take the 12 because we do Stairway, we do Hotel California, we do all the big hits
any Kansas?
requiring the 12, and tons of Kansas songs that Todd rocks on, and Todd sings them all.
No.
Lots of birds.
Walsh in Lots of Birds, yeah.
So what are you doing?
Definitely 12, brother.
All right.
Yep.
Any particular color?
Color will be zibidabadoo, purple.
Purple. All right. Of course. That fits Jared.
No, I don't think they actually. I'm sorry. No, pink paisley.
Pink paisley. Okay.
Yep.
All right, better call the custom shop.
Dave, how about yourself?
I'm going to be maybe the standout. I don't know if we haven't had your choice yet, have we? I'm going to go for the Maverick.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to assume this is either my own. Is this my own current band or
Yeah, sure, why not?
my band or my previous band?
Yeah.
There's going to be a fair amount of string bending, and that's just going to go south on the 12 string. And this is just get the sound across. And plus it's funky. I mean, I could see just having to make that work and say, yeah, what about it? This is the guitar I'm playing, What are you going to do about it?
You got a problem with that?
What are you looking at? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm going to do the same thing. Because I mean, if the headstock wasn't so goofed up.
I love that headstock. I love it.
It's just so
It's the Gumby. It's the Gumby headstock.
It just takes the cool. It's like that body. It could be like kind of tough looking.
What if it was?
And then it just is a droopy popsicle.
They should have cut while they were at the bandsaw. They should have made that fourth cut.
Yes.
And amazing that they didn't. Huh?
Yeah. I'm going to do that, and I'm actually going to flip it. I'm going to make it gold sparkle with a black pickguard. Usually, so Dave, my thing is black guitars with gold sparkle pickguards that Tony makes for me. So,
okay.
Yeah. Anyways, that was a fun one, Tony.
2 and 2.
Good thinking. David, we got to say a few thanks to a handful of people, and then we are going to bid you adieu, okay?
All righty.
Todd, at this point of the show, there is a special group of people that we love to thank.
That's right.
These are our executive producers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might be wondering, what is an executive producer? Well, I'm going to tell you. An executive producer is a supporter, a sponsor of this very podcast. If you want to find out how you can become one, head over to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs. Check out a couple different levels in which you can participate. Become a sponsor, a patron, if you will, of this very podcast and make this very show possible. Each level comes with a great bevy of thank you gifts, including things like T-shirts and barefoot buttons and picks and stickers and flashlights and keychains. Oh, did I say keychains? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
But there's one thing more as an executive producer that you get, Jared.
You get to have your name read on the thing.
Your name read on the thing. So I'm going to do that right now. Special thanks to these executive producers, Mr. Tom Barazin, Darren Gregory, Doug Christ, Ken Sayers, Michael Senchuk, Stefan Lamb, Anthony Lathrop, John Anglin, John Esterly. I just saw John today. Justin Jones, James White, Matt Hart, Bill Gola Guitars, Richard Kendall, Tyke Harmon, John Jackson, Jason Roush, Gary Cooper, Mark Garton, Elad Mizrahi, Mike D, Trevor Gunberg, Rick Calhoun, Anthony Gemolero, John Helverson, and Drew Lopez.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. But wait, Todd, there's more because we have another special group of executive producers. We call them our Grand Poobahs. These fine folks are just a step above executive producer. they get a fez to place upon their head whilst listening to
It's
the
a large
podcast.
step, but a step.
It's a step.
Yeah.
I'm just going to thank these grand poobahs. Jonathan Jerusik, Corey Nigro, David Kaminga, Science of Sound, Cody Foster, Sean S. Tom Imanasco, Adam Johnson, Steve Keys, Tim Novak, Tyler Rhines, James Pennington, Ellis J Music Company, John Williams, Johnny Morales, Mel Sanders, Bob Crouch, Sam Jett, Michio Murakishi, Martin Cliff, Hex Metos, Michael Van Zant, Brian Robinson, and John Daly.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all so very much. Dave, we're going to say the name of your book one more time. Fender, 75 Years. It is in a gorgeous hardback that looks like Fender Tweed amp. Go out and get that. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, guys. It was a lot of fun. Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Tony. It was a blast. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
sir.
is there anywhere that you want to send listeners to go check out any of your band works or your other books?
Oh, that's kind. I mean, the books are on most of the online dealers. Like if you go to Amazon.com and
Yep.
look me up as an author, you'll find them there by name. The band stuff for A Different Engine, and also the Moline stuff is all going to be on Spotify or Apple Music or your streaming source of choice.
Okay. Fantastic. Go check that out, everybody. Tony?
Just go over to pickguardian.com. Check out some of the wares I have available for sale. By and large, what I do is custom work. So shoot me an email. Let me know what you need, what you're trying to do. I can probably give you some good advice and steer you in the right direction.
And show them some amazing
Sparkles.
cool stuff. Jared, about yourself.
You can find me through the Guitar Knobs media things.
Right. And soon you will have your very own Instagram and be a real boy. You can shoot me an email, Todd at theguitarknobs.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can also DM me on Instagram and talk to any of these two clowns too. At Guitar Knobs. We'd love to hear your stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your hopes, your dreams, your four on the floors, and your would you rathers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening, and have a fantastic guitar week, and subscribe!
Yeah. Need to go to the barber and shave.
Okay.
What?
Well, don't do that right now. Let's
how about we do the
stay here.
podcast and then you can do the barber and shave later.
Yeah. Okay.
Dave's not here, man.
Right. I just totally.
So
you-
we'll
yeah,
have,
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
we'll
Yeah,
have
right.
brain fart.
Thank you for joining us today on this. What? What, Tony? What? You can't. Did I say something wrong?
You always say something wrong.
What'd I say?
Thank you. Thank you.
What?
What?
Yeah.
I'm saving that one for later.
No.
Yeah.
We're not recording yet.
No. Okay.
Well, yeah.
To that end,
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/The Guitar Knobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.